You've been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
Good morning, Albuquerque, and welcome to another episode of That Saturday Show. This is a very special episode because tomorrow is Mother's Day, and later in the show today we're going to be talking about Mother's Day in a way that you've probably never heard a discussion about Mother's Day. Very educational. But we're so pleased that we are joined today. I've got a guest co-host, and that's so exciting. Tracy Jordan is here, and she's going to put something on your mind. But in the meantime, Tracy, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Thank you. It's an honor.
All right. So before we get into that, let's just get some things off the bulletin board. Congressional District 1 election time is coming up, and the voting season has already started. May 4 is early in-person voting began. And in addition to early in-person voting, you can now request your absentee ballots, but do it right away. Go to Secretary of State.newmexico.us to request your absentee ballot. Now on May 18th, that's the last day that you can request, that's the last day that you can actually submit an absentee ballot. So let's get those in. It's not a lot of time because on May 29th, that's the last day of early voting in the Congressional District 1 race. If you don't know who those candidates are, go online and check and find out who's there so you'll know who to vote for. Then June 1 is Election Day, and polling stations will be open from 7 in the morning till 7 p.m., and we need you to get out and vote. This is an important seat, and that's about all I'm going to say about it. It's an important election, and we need you to come out and vote. We'll be talking about the mayor's race later on in the month. That race is just beginning to heat up, and it's going to take some interesting turns, I'm sure. A free Zoom meeting on diabetes in the Black community is set for June 15th at 10 a.m. It will repeat on June 19th and June 22nd. If you want information about this, contact us at the Peace and Justice Center, and we'll tell you how you can register. And then finally, the New Mexico Public Health Association will hold its annual meeting on May 20th and May 21st. And for details, you can also contact us, and we'll tell you how to register for that. Now, I mentioned last week that I'm concerned over the mayor's budget proposal for a sizable increase in the police department's budget, and already consumes 1/3 of the city's budget. And they receive substantial federal dollars and military-style equipment. That's a gag. I can't stand it. While discussions continue, and there's a lot of talk that's going on right now about community safety and alternative policing, we are yet to see any action when we look at plans to fund these new services. Now, we hear that the funds will be drawn from other departments, and I ask the question, why? Why not take that money out of the police department's already bloated budget? Then the DOJ monitor, the Department of Justice federal monitor here, has already said that APD is regressing, going backwards in its supposed prescriptions for progress and change. And the police union has the unmitigated gall to say that they want Justice Department out of our business. Another why? Let's try something different. Human resources, assess all the police officers and determine if they have any ties to white supremacists and Ku Klux Klan, because the FBI told us several years ago that Police departments are being infiltrated all over the country by white supremacists and other racist groups. We need these cops out of our department. And in internal affairs, let's clear the excessive force backlogs and get things back on track. All right, it is time for, yes it is, Good News News. Hasani, where are you?
Good morning and welcome to Good News News. I'm your correspondent, Hasani Olujimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. Now the goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Let's jump right in, shall we? Our first story reads like this. Orphan polar bear that loves to hug Arctic workers gets a new life. When the Arctic gold miners discovered the lost helpless bear cub whose mother had died, it didn't take long for her to melt their hearts. As the orphan cub grew to trust the workers, the furry guest soon felt like a friend to the workers. The crew scheduled to leave the base when their work contract ended, the vulnerable bear would be left to fend for herself. Between the threat of other predators and her lack of adequate hunting skills, she would manage to survive without help. The miners hoped that the leftover food they left behind would be enough to sustain their beloved pal until they organized a rescue mission for her. The miners reached out to the Moscow Zoo for guidance at their earliest convenience. The director of the Russian zoo said, "All we knew is that the cub's mother had died, and that was months ago. When it discovered the base, it was attracted to the smell of food." They further said the miners saved the bear's life because the cub had no chance to survive. Now isn't that good news? Now moving on to some local good news. Over $6 million from the American Rescue Plan will go toward helping students in New Mexico who are experiencing homelessness. The money, which the state will receive over the next 2 months, aims to help those kids go to school and summer programs. The state public education department said that the $6.4 million can go to such costs as transportation, temporary housing, and mental health resources. Now isn't that good news? All right, New Mexico, help our students because they are the future. Well, I'm going to hand this part of our segment over to my good pal and friend, hopefully yours too, Little Big Mama. Take it away.
Thank you, Hasani. I have 2 riddles for your viewers today. First one, what has 4 wheels and flies? A garbage truck. Now the second one will stump you. Are you ready? Okay. Why are dogs not good dancers? Because they have 2 left feet. Thank you, baby. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Little Big Mama. We appreciate you. The best way to turn a frown upside down is to get Gugu for good news. I'm your correspondent, Hasani Olujimi, featuring Little Big Mama. We'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show with more good news. Back to you, Jim.
Welcome back to That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and I'm excited today because we are talking about the next big important holiday in May, and that is Mother's Day, tomorrow, May 9th. And we know that we spend a lot of time with flowers and chocolates and dinners and all those other exciting things that we do for our moms. But there's another and really important discussion that needs to happen around the real meaning and the origin of Mother's Day. And so joining me today for this discussion, and I'm just going to get out of the way and let them talk about it because they know more than I do, But joining me are Lara Dale and Rivera Sun, two of my favorite people here in Albuquerque. And certainly they both have a lot that they can share on this. Lara, welcome.
So
Rivera,
Jim.
welcome, Rivera. And let's just launch into it. So let's talk about, where did Mother's Day come from?
Yeah, so Mother's Day started in 1870 by a woman named Julia Ward Howe, who wrote this impassioned, actually very poetic Mother's Day peace proclamation. I'm just going to read it one line from it. It said, "Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. We women of one country will be too tender to those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs." And for her, Mother's Day was a day to stand firm for peace, to oppose the carnage of the American Civil War, I think the Mexican American War, the Franco-Prussian War, sorry. And she was very dismayed 30 years later when Anna Marie Jarvis launched a more sentimental, like, honor your mother's thing day on May 10th, which is when we celebrate it now, or that around that weekend. But you know, even Maria Jarvis was very upset because only a few years later after she started this, she was decrying the commercialization of this, that the symbols of white carnations suddenly would spike in expense, so working class women couldn't buy their mother's carnations. She thought, like, it's really kind of stupid to buy your mother's candy when you're just going to sit there and eat it. Like, what a pain to your mother. So even from the very beginning, this Mother's Day thing has been really controversial. The women who very much started it also opposed what it was even becoming back then, and definitely they'd be like, if you're taking your mom to a brunch instead of a peace protest, you're missing the point, right? So that's the quick overview of where Mother's Day came from. But I think, today we can really up our game, let's say, on how we honor not just our mothers, but all the mothers in the world and all the children of mothers. And if you've done that mental calculation, you might have figured out that that means honoring all people and the planet and paying them homage and respect. Maybe not just even on Mother's Day, but all year round.
Well, and I think for me, what's interesting is the cyclical nature of oppression, and the fact that originally this was starting from the sort of fertility goddesses, and in particular Gaia, the wife of Uranus, who's considered to have birthed all of us and everything. Her daughter then takes after her mother and births some of the gods in Greek legend. And always this notion that there was tremendous respect, and you held a ceremony and all of these things. And so one of the things I'm hoping that comes out of all the tumult that's going on in society right now is that we have, Rivera had been speaking about this before we started the show, but just the young people that are waking up and doing extraordinary stuff right now. And I think it's because we're all starting to realize we can't have this paternalistic, a woman's place is in the home and she does all this incredibly important stuff, but we don't honor it. We don't acknowledge it. It's just her job. She's supposed to take care of everything. And it's exactly how microcosm to macrocosm we treat Mother Earth. And I think there's a lot of young people right now that are waking up and understanding we're not going to be around in another 2 or 3 generations if we continue this track of ignoring our mother. And that is our great Mother Earth. But it's also the mother in our life who nurtures us, who keeps the generations going, who takes care of the hearth and home, and needs to be honored for that. So I'm hoping that part of this dialogue is about people remembering the sacredness of it, that the origins were a sacred reverence for the fact that we were created from this great womb, and that we need to honor that feminine because that's the only reason we're here. And so I'm fascinated with, actually, if Rivera, it'd be interesting to hear if your take on the fact that the asterisk was originally like all mothers, and then the asterisk possessive, and then it turned into just mother possessive. Do you have a take on that? I thought that was interesting.
Well, I think that maybe goes along with the getting upset about the commercialization of Mother's Day from the individualization of U.S. culture is such a strong trend, and it really has been done for commercialistic sake, so that everybody needs their own fridge, everybody needs their own like phone and computer, and every person in the car needs their own in the household needs their own car. So yeah, in making it singular, we're kind of thinking about me, mine, my mom, versus thinking what brings us together, what unites us, what do we have in common, and how does that lift our common dignity.
I think it'd actually be cool to go back to that original asterisk and make it, global again, that sort of thing. I thought that what was fascinating to me with understanding Mother's Day is that it was in some ways a kind of a feminist movement. It was certainly a humanist movement, but reading about that Anne Jarvis was actually trying to bring the two sides of the American Civil War together. And so part of the mothering original circles that she was doing was also reconciliation things, like showing women to get Confederate and get the two sides of the soldiers together and create peace and harmony. So what's fascinating is the ultimate goal of the original founders of the ideas of Mother's Day was peace from peace in wartime, but also reconciliation between opposing parties. And so I think that message is really critical to get back to, that yeah, okay, it's okay, buy your mom flowers and whatever, because she probably appreciates it, she loves the chocolates you get her or whatever. But if the family together could sit down and sort of meditate on the peacekeeping message of this, and making some sort of commitment through the year to carry that out, that what we're really here for is reconciliation, and that what that holiday was originally designed for is to bring us all together. I just, that to me is sort of the goal of me participating in this program, is just that we're coming full circle back to the original message, which is we are all from the Great Mother. That day is to honor the Great Mother and all the great mothers, but it's also about peacekeeping. It's also about protecting our children from war, which is why Anne was protesting,
I have to tell you too, I cannot imagine a greater demonstration of love and nurturing, than to organize to protect, mothers organizing to protect their sons in particular against the ravages of war and the danger that comes with that. I think that, just a point of personal privilege, just to draw a correlation, to what happened on Tuesday with the George Floyd murder trial. Remembering back that George Floyd's last utterances were a call for his mother. Those are powerful. So when you start talking about, a mother and the love and the care, how deep it runs, and how significant it goes so much farther than flowers and chocolate and dinner. We're talking about war. We're talking about suing for peace. And I think that that's such a valuable statement.
I think when we ignore the ravages of war, as Julia Ward Howe said, we force ourselves to overlook the mothers and their children in the war places that we're attacking and bombing as well. We've in the US very much normalized our militaristic culture, and we're just starting to throw off the yoke of that normalization. And Black people are leading it, people of color are leading it in this country, saying, that line where the wars come home, become the militarized police is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
We are not civilians in some combatant war being waged by the police. That is the wrong way to frame this. And that is very much how the militarized police think of us, that we are either enemies or civilians, and one of us gets killed and one of us doesn't, right?
That's right.
And so this mentality right? It's bad domestically, but it's also devastating in places like Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq. We could go on. We're actually at war in nearly a dozen countries around the world, and we don't ever say that we're at war. And honestly, we got to call out the right left divide on this issue because a lot of our friends and relatives on the right, their kids are out there fighting the wars and they've been asking the wars to end. And those on the left like to pretend that they hold some holy position. But no, both sides need to step up and say the wars are wrong. Oh, this militarization is wrong. It's not feminist. It's not just. It's not equitable. It's bad for the planet. And it's certainly bad for our sons and daughters. It's bad for the sons and daughters of everybody else around the world.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and Jim,
Lara?
we were talking beforehand about the what were you saying, like generational trauma?
Yes, we're talking about how trauma, is hereditary, and we never believe that to be the case, but you can in fact inherit trauma, and generations, are experiencing that, and some of it could come from war, but certainly in the case of Africans and African Americans in this country, it's been trauma for over 400 years, and our oppressors just keep heaping more trauma on top of more trauma, and it just gets passed on from one generation to the next. And here we are today in probably the most traumatic period in a long time in this country, when we're all fighting for our lives because someone has declared war on us. That's what it is.
Well, and speaking to that, because my father was, I have a lot of male family members who were in the military, served their time. My uncle, though, in particular, who I only got to meet in a little bit as a child, committed suicide because of it. And I come from a very difficult family dynamic, mostly coming from paternal side of the family, and particularly my father. And I know the war just damaged him. I know it. My suspicion actually is that he might have been raped in the Navy when he was there because of the symptomatic acting out that he did. And my concern too with war is this pretense that the government tells because it's the only thing they can do to get us involved in it, which is it all ends when the war ends.
Right.
And it doesn't. And when speaking to what you're talking about, generational trauma, and there's these sorts of things, and almost like ancestral trauma in some cases, there is not a taking into account the fact that the war lives on in the people who survived it, and it lives on through generations, depending on how they transpose their pain onto the next generation of their families. And so even families who live in relative peace may actually have a war zone at home because of a grandfather or a father, or if a mother has served in the military, who got severely damaged by all the violence and horror that they saw. This just goes on and on and on, and the ripple effect of it. And I think what is so fascinating to me is that back in the late 1800s, these women are recognizing the ripple effect of war, not just on their sons, but how this is going to play out in society, and demanding that it stop. And I think that, to me, the most beautiful thing about what they were working towards is this notion that peace is how we end this constant rippling effect of, the U.S. has now been at war most of its existence. Whether it started with the Native Americans, whether it was with the slaves, whether it was with all the countries we've invaded, we've now been at war almost the entirety of our existence.
That's right.
And so, to me, maybe another part of this is, when does the U.S. stop being a warmongering country?
Exactly. So we've got about a minute left, unfortunately. But my question to the two of you, to wrap this up, would be, what can we begin to do to just nudge people away from the commercialization and the misleading intents of Mother's Day, and get them thinking about how we can be a lot more proactive in the name of peace and justice?
Rivera, I'm happy to have you
Yeah, absolutely. So, sharing the origins of the Mother's Day Peace Proclamation with your mom, right?
Hmm.
Sit down with her and say, "Hey, did you know where this started? Isn't that cool?" And then considering, if your mom's already woke to the Peace Proclamation, maybe remember that if you're going to buy her flowers or chocolates or take her out to brunch, maybe make a donation to a peace organization in her name, maybe like Fellowship of Reconciliation or Code Pink, which is Women for Peace,
Yeah.
or there are hundreds of options. um, and consider making that an annual tradition if you have the resources to do so. Consider taking your mom and your grandmom to a protest for peace, a demonstration
Hey.
for peace on Mother's Day. You can still have brunch, just go and hold a sign. Maybe while you're waiting in line for your brunch, maybe after your brunch while you're digesting. Like, it doesn't need to be an either or. You can still love your mom, you can love her up on Mother's Day and celebrate her, and you can take a stand for peace. And all of those things can be a way of showing that you care for your mom and for all the moms in the world.
When I
Lara?
second that, I think to me the most important thing is that we honor what those two women were originally working towards, which is that this was a peace movement. It was a suffragette abolitionist peace movement, and it was designed to try and create awareness around the power that women have when they unify around their nurturing to end these types of injustices. So I think for me, I guess I would leave people at women have tremendous power, and we do make incredible change even when a few of us stand up and do something. So let's all turn Mother's Day into a global peace day.
We've been talking with Rivera's son and Lara Dale on a very important topic, very important in these times in particular, and that is the true meaning and origin of Mother's Day. And we're going to keep this discussion going because now you got me thinking that maybe we need to have a Mother's Day demonstration in this town. So stay tuned. It just might happen. Lara, Rivera, thank you so much for taking the time, and happy Mother's Day to both of you. All right.
And
And
to you and to all the mothers out there, whether you identify as a woman or a man, if you're engaged in the act of mothering, we honor and respect you.
be in
Absolutely.
touch soon. Thanks again, everybody. And
Thank you so much.
back to the studio.
Bye-bye.
Ever wanted to do more for social justice and other major issues in Albuquerque, New Mexico? If so, then the Center for Peace and Justice is just for you. Devoted to bringing true-centered discussions about critical social justice issues in our state, globally, through various means and actions, we provide a positive attitude in everything we do. We offer incredible opportunities to those who want to join our team to learn important skills that are needed to run a nonprofit organization. Please be a member or volunteer, or have your group join us. There's space for everyone who's interested in what we do here at the Peace Center. For more information, call us at 505-268-9557. Go to our website at abqpeaceandjustice.org or email us at www.abqpeaceandjustice.org. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you so much. We've got more for you. And one of the things that's going to be an exciting wrap up to the show today is going to be coming to you from Jessica Wachs, who's going to give you Sweet Georgia. And when you hear it, you're going to want to know how to get in touch and buy her music at jessicawachs.com. But for now, we're going back to our co-host, our honored co-host, Tracy Jordan. Tracy, we're back, and we want to talk about that book on tyranny and how you came to get so deep into this. And let me tell you, folks, this is going to, when you hear today's reading, it's going to be the first of a series. We're going to read this entire book chapter by chapter over the next weeks so that you can get a full benefit of the book on tyranny. And when I heard you talking about it earlier today and how you wanted to try to get it in libraries, one of the first things I said, Tracy, was You know what we ought to do is just get a bunch of volunteers and go out to all the libraries around the city, and each of them read a chapter of the book in front of the public, out in front. Just get out in front of it and just read, because it's such a powerful book. So tell us more about it.
Okay, so On Tyranny is a book of lessons. I believe there are 20 lessons about how tyranny can take over in subtle ways, in quiet ways, in ways that are sometimes happening so behind the scenes and so quietly that before you know it, things in your country, society, government look very different than they looked 6 months, a year ago. So Timothy Snyder is a Yale professor. It's a tiny little book, okay, called On Tyranny. It was published in 2017. And a neighbor actually came to me with the idea, with the book, asked me if I had read the book, lent me the book, had the idea of getting, of us buying enough of these books to put one in each public library in Albuquerque. Well, for whatever reason, I think even without COVID, the libraries were a little overwhelmed with donations, not interested in books, okay? All right, so now what do we do? All right, so it is on Kindle, it is on Audible. You can pay $2.99, yes indeed. But we still decided, well, what can we just do at a grassroots level ourselves? So I read the book chapter by chapter. Each chapter is a lesson on the development of tyranny, the workings, the strategies, the techniques, the changes that occur. And I just read this at home. It was taped. It's on YouTube under the channel Voting is Like That. We'll publish that web address at some point from YouTube. And you can listen to them in any order you want. Some of the chapters are 2 minutes long. Some of them are 11 minutes long. You don't have to go in order. You can listen again. You can take your time. It's not a pretty book. I think it's a very important book. I think it's still very timely, even though we're in new era. And that's why literally a neighbor and I decided to do this and put it on YouTube.
That's fantastic, and that is so exciting. And I'm just glad that we're going to be able to just continue this week after week, another passage from On Tyranny, so that our listeners will be able to enjoy it. So we're going to go to your reading of Be Reflective If You Must Bear Arms. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lesson 7. Be reflective if you must be armed. If you carry a weapon in public service, may God bless you and keep you. But know that evils of the past involved policemen and soldiers finding themselves one day doing irregular things. Be ready to say no. Authoritarian regimes usually include a special riot police force whose task it is to disperse citizens who seek to protest, and a secret state police force whose assignments include the murder of dissenters or others designated as enemies. And indeed, we find forces of the latter kind deeply involved in the great atrocities of the 20th century, such as the Great Terror in the Soviet Union of 1937-38, and of the Holocaust of European Jews perpetrated by Nazi Germany in 1941-45. Yet we make a great mistake if we imagine that the Soviet KNVD or the Nazi SS acted without support. Without the assistance of regular police forces and sometimes regular soldiers, they could not have killed on such a large scale. In the Great Terror of the Soviet Union, NKVD officers recorded 682,691 executions of supposed enemies of the state, most of them peasants or members of national minorities. Perhaps no organ of violence has ever been more centralized or better organized than the NKVD of those years. A small number of men carried out the next shots, which meant that certain NKVD officers had thousands of political murders on their consciences. Even so, they could not possibly have carried out this campaign without the assistance of local police forces, legal professionals, and civil servants throughout the Soviet Union. The Great Terror took place during a state of exception that required all policemen to subordinate themselves to the NKVD and its special tasks. The policemen were not the principal perpetrators, but they provided indispensable manpower. When we think of the Nazi Holocaust of the Jews, we imagine Auschwitz and mechanized, impersonal death. This was a convenient way for Germans to remember the Holocaust, since they could claim that few of them had known exactly what had happened behind those gates. In fact, the Holocaust began not in the death facilities, but over shooting pits in Eastern Europe. And indeed, some of the commanders of the Einsatzgruppen, the German task forces that perpetuated some of the murders, were tried at Nuremberg and later in West German courts. But even these trials were a kind of minimization of the scale of the crime. Not the SS commanders alone, but essentially all of the thousands of men who served under their command were murderers. And this was just the beginning. Every large-scale shooting action of the Holocaust, more than 33,000 Jews murdered outside of Kiev, more than 28,000 outside Riga, and on and on and on, involved the regular German police. All in all, regular policemen murdered more Jews than the Einsatzgruppen. Many of them had no special preparation for this task. They found themselves in an unknown land. They had their orders, and they did not want to look weak. In the rare cases when they refused these orders to murder Jews, policemen were not punished. Some killed from murderous conviction, but many others who also killed were just afraid to stand out. Other forces were at work beside conformism, but without the conformists, the great atrocities would have been impossible.
Now, good morning, Albuquerque, and welcome back to That Saturday Show. We have something super special ahead for you here. We are going to be talking with the incomparable, incredible, and the very lovely Jessica Hannah Wachs, who has done just remarkable work and in Albuquerque and around the country. But right now, she has done a fantastic piece called Sweet Georgia, and we want to talk about that and other projects that she's involved in. And so let me just start by welcoming Jessica Hannah Wachs. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's good to have you here. And this labor of love that you've been engaged in now for a little while now, you know, I've just been listening and watching the videos, and I'm just blown away. I really am. So before we get into Sweet Georgia and how that ties into the Georgia on My Mind project, let's just get a little background on you, okay? Where are you from?
I am originally from Wisconsin, but I graduated from New Mexico, the University of New Mexico, and spent some time there growing up. So I'm like a Wisconsin New Mexican hybrid, which means cheese and queso. That's the way to go.
That's a wonderful deal. Wonderful deal. It really is. You can't have one without the other.
No. It's just one language switch away from the other.
That's it. It's it. You melt that good cheese and you got queso, right?
That's it. Yep. And so I'm from both of them, and I've been working in New Mexico for like the last 8 years with a production company that I started there right after graduating, and getting involved in the arts community.
And many of us who were lucky enough to have seen you in action really know what you can do. We really do. Yeah. So when did you start making music?
I started actually making music during at the University of New Mexico. I made the UNM a cappella choir because I just was a little bit too into shenanigans and mischief to just do choral music at the church. So we made that, and I realized, oh, I've made this monster and we need music. I better get into arranging too. So it started there at UNM. Before that, I was a little bit too nervous writing anything that was original.
Wow. Wow. Well, it shows. It shows. That background, those great beginnings really come through. So are there any artists, during your career, any artists in particular that have stood out to be particular influences or inspirations, to what you do?
Yeah, I grew up on Ella Fitzgerald. I love the jazz sound. I love the powerful voice. And I also love Idina Menzel. So I love how she's just unabashedly herself, just belting her heart out, not giving a care in the world about what other people think. Like the combo of them both, I would love to one day just tap into.
Yeah. Ella, that's my heart. I've got a huge photograph of her in my office at home.
Nice.
You're such an inspiration. I almost grew up on her. So yeah, can't miss with Ella. You can't. You really can't.
Seriously.
So let's talk a little bit about the project. Why are you interested in supporting Albuquerque and the center and the work that we're doing here? I know you've got strong ties, but talk a little bit about, what moves you in this direction.
Yeah, I still have a part of my heart in New Mexico because of having a background there, and I still run Rumble Productions out of Albuquerque online as I travel around. So it's just a place that's near and dear to my heart. And while this pandemic had people just floating around in all different places, doing what they could to get through it, I found myself unable to be of use, especially with the civil rights issues coming up and all of the murders. And like, I couldn't leave the place that I was staying at for very long because I had to be extra careful not to spread COVID to some family members that I was in touch with in person. I ended up quarantined in a little bubble of just 3 people. And so while I was out in Wisconsin, I just wanted to help, and I couldn't go to Minneapolis to do the rallies. And meanwhile, I had this song that was just bubbling up, and it needed to exist. It was all I could do from where I was at to help. And after it was created, I didn't want to take any profit from it because I thought that would be awkward. And I wanted it to be what I could do to give back. And I don't think that I have any right to profit off of something that stands for a lot of pain that people went through. But there I was online on Facebook. And I was trying to find the right nonprofits to donate the profits to. And there you were, starting the Jordan on My Mind campaign. And I was like, oh my God, of course. Jim Harvey of New Mexico. Like, he love that guy. He works so hard. He's the perfect guy to give it to. And it goes back to my New Mexico roots. And I love Hasani. So I thought it would be great to give it to your organization at the center, and as well as Fair Fight. So people should support their inner circle that they grew up with and developed with. And so it just made sense to kind of come back home for my first release and have that foundation of a friend circle and a bigger meaning that you could step into than just your first song existing.
Well, we love you and appreciate you for that as well. And I've been in touch again with the people at Fair Fight as well, and shared the song with them. And you see, people are calling in already. That's good.
Wow, now they're calling. It's incredible.
Love it.
Good luck everywhere.
But they're excited as well, and we're working out our the logistics for even more collaboration, because this work is not going to go away anytime soon, and the song could very well become the theme for the work that we're doing. And I just love that idea as well, and we want to move forward and do everything we possibly can to and of course at the end of the show today we're going to play the song and introduce it to all of our viewers and let them know more about how they can support this project by buying the song. That's what we want you to do. That's the important goal here.
Mm-hmm. It would be an honor.
Yeah.
It would be an honor if it could continue being of use, because I intend for the profit always to be going to your organizations. I'm just going to hook up a link and it's going to keep flowing in.
We want that to happen, but it'll also be You're right. And and that's going to be a testament to the quality of your work, though. It really is. And it's top of the line. Everyone's going to be really happy with it. So talk to me a little bit about, the team that you worked with on producing this song and the music video,
Yeah. Well, what's funny is this song was actually produced with the finances that came from my stimulus check. So this is America at work with itself. And
Thank you, Joe Biden.
Right? Thank you. So Joe Biden endorsed this piece, everybody. Right. Another reason to purchase it.
There you go.
But so because I had a bigger budget than average because of Joe Biden, I reached out to a connection that I had during my time in Los Angeles. Huey Stonefish is his name. He did the instrumentals and helped produce it all together. And then we had it mastered by Reed Kruger in Minneapolis, who he's very invested. His heart was very in the project because he's right there in Minneapolis and it's very active right now. Those two made it possible. They brought it to a level far better than I could have expected. And right now my heart goes out to Richard Lee Graham, who just finished putting over 55 hours of editing work just into that music video. He did most of that as volunteer work, frankly, with how much time he put in. And so he lives just half a mile away from where George Floyd was murdered. So he had a lot to say. He had a lot of thoughts. And so all of us as a team, at first we thought that we were going to keep the music video a little bit vague, as a song can be interpreted in multiple ways. But after Dante Wright was murdered and Ma'Khia Bryant, and all during the Chauvin trial, we decided that we were just going to be blunt. We're just going to lay it out how it is and stop making ourselves PG to not offend people. This is the life that we're living in right now, and it is reality. So we just put it all out on display for everyone. You could tell the Minnesotan people, residents of Minnesota, contributed to that video very much so.
Yeah, if my mother was alive, she'd probably be very happy. She was born in St. Paul, although she left there as a child, in her later years, I used to ask her, well, what was it like growing up in Minnesota? And she'd come out of her, her moments of dementia, and she'd just look up and say, cold. That's
something you don't forget no matter what state you're in. That's how it is.
That's right. One of my first, well, I shouldn't say first, but one of my earlier job assignments was working on a project for a big foundation, and they decided to send me to Minneapolis in January. Mm-hmm. And I quickly concluded that they didn't like me very much. I said, why January? I said, well, we got to get this done. So I said, okay, all right. So I won't take it personally, but I tell you, January in Minneapolis, that's not nice at all.
Oh, man.
So we've got a few minutes left, and what I'd like to give you some time to do is talk about other projects that you're looking at for the future, because I want everybody to know everybody's going to know after they hear the song, what a superstar you are. But additionally, I want them to look forward to some other things that you're going to be doing. So, take a couple minutes and just tell me what's happening, what you got on the burner.
Sure. Well, one thing that I realized was I don't want to be an artist that represents something smaller. You got to be a part of something bigger than yourself for something to be meaningful. And while I was writing Sweet Georgia on January 6th, I pulled an all-nighter because I was very upset, but also elated about what happened with Georgia, but very upset with it. Just resulted in me realizing that I want the foundation of my artistic career to start by being in a position of giving back and getting people to think and find ways to be a part of more than just their little bubble and their little lives, and to start thinking. And I wanted to find a way to give a voice to people who are often overlooked. So Sweet Georgia was the first of many songs that I intend to create in order to do just that. I've got a song in the works called Cry Violin, and I'm not going to change the name, so it will be that. And it'll go to the Me Too movement and give a voice back to women. I have one in the works for the LGBTQ community. I've got one that's I've got so many. And essentially, I think they're all going to be put together in an album called Speak, where it's designed to give a voice to those who don't have it that often. And besides that, I'm gearing up for creating a new television show that will be taking place all over the United States.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'll be writing music around the nation while also communicating with people to see about exploring the cultures in each place I visit. I don't want to spoil it too much yet, though, but it's coming by the end of the summer. It will have the same theme of creating peace and looking at justice and philosophy and what we can do to rebuild our nation at the end of this pandemic in a more long-term, beneficial, peaceful way where we can actually get along and create progress that will stay, so that we don't have to keep making music videos that could have been made in 1930 because things have changed so little. So I'm going to be up to that project, and I'm off finding financiers and sponsors and crew members to make it happen. So that's me.
We've been talking to Jessica Hannah Wachs, and we just want to extend our deep appreciation, first of all, for your commitment and dedication to the causes of social justice, and to this project in particular that is going to help push forward with the Georgia on My Mind project. That's coming out of the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice. But especially we want to thank you for the contribution of your music, Sweet Georgia. It's going to resonate around the country and hopefully around the world. And we're going to be right there doing everything we can to push it. Again, buy Sweet Georgia. We're telling everybody, buy Sweet Georgia. Jessica, we love you. We appreciate you, and we're going to talk to you again real soon.
Love you right back, and thank you, Jim, for what you do. You're just as big of a hero as everyone else in that video.
Oh, gee. Thanks so much. Take care.
You too.
All right.
Sweet Georgia. The ghosts are out, blind eyes and grinning faces under the swirling sheets of white and scarlet. Yes, I know, should be a nighttime story, should be a nightmare, but no, it's all reality. So they go over the streets and alleys under the guise of rallies, compromising everything worth fighting for. They meet nowhere of poison, the marbles, bare guns frozen, sides already chosen. The ghosts are out, but some won't run away. When it seems history is here to stay. Some keep on sleeping, others dream it's safe to sleep. Some never sleep till they awaken their dreams. Sweet Georgia, sweet dream in Georgia. We can breathe, Georgia. Yeah, you'll be on our minds. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da-da. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-do-do-do-ba-ba-da-do. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-da. Ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-do. The gates are down, broken doors and disgraces. Phantoms come out creeping from their dark hiding places, and they know, but turn the other way. The twisted tongues, now they've got nothing to say, so they go